A lot of people who start looking at the Gulf Coast do not begin by saying, I only want Alabama. A lot of them start with a much bigger question. Should we move to Florida? Should we look at the Alabama Gulf Coast? Should we compare Gulf Shores or Orange Beach with places like Pensacola, Perdido Key, Destin, or other parts of the Florida Panhandle? And that is a very normal question. Florida has a huge name when it comes to beach living. It has a lot of well-known coastal towns and a lot of tourism and a lot of different markets. But here's what I've noticed. Some buyers start by looking at Florida and then they end up taking a closer look at the Alabama Gulf Coast because the lifestyle here feels like a better fit for them. Not because Florida's bad, not because Alabama is automatically better, but because they want a different kind of Gulf Coast experience. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why some buyers choose the Alabama Gulf Coast over Florida, what makes this area different, and what you should think about if you're comparing the two. And just to be clear, I am licensed to practice real estate in Florida, but I'm not here to tell you which market is right or wrong. I'm going to speak from the Alabama side and help you understand why this area may make sense for certain buyers. If this is your first time on the channel, I'm really glad you're here. I'm Miranda Baldridge with Advantage Real Estate, your local go-to realtor and community connector right here in Baldwin County, Alabama. I help people relocate to Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Foley, Fairhope, Daphne, Spanish Fort, Robertsdale, and all the surrounding areas. One of the biggest things I help buyers do is compare lifestyles, because moving to the Gulf Coast is not just about finding a pretty beach. It's about choosing the right area, the right property, the right budget, and the right day-to-day lifestyle. So if you're thinking about moving to the Alabama Gulf Coast or anywhere in Baldwin County, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I share honest videos about what it's really like living here. All right, let's talk about why some buyers choose Alabama's Gulf Coast instead of Florida. One reason some buyers choose the Alabama Gulf Coast is that it can feel more focused and easier to understand. Florida is huge. Even if you narrow it down to the Gulf side of Florida, you still have a lot of very different markets. Pensacola is different from Destin. Destin's different from Panama City Beach. The Tampa area is different from Naples. And every area has its own pricing, traffic, insurance considerations, lifestyle, and local feel. For some buyers, that's exciting. They want a lot of options. But for others, it can feel very overwhelming. The Alabama Gulf Coast is more concentrated. You can compare Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Foley, Fairhope, Daphne, Spanish Fort, Robertsdale, and nearby communities without feeling like you're researching an entire state. That small search area can make the decision feel more manageable. You can understand the lifestyle differences more clearly. You can visit several communities in one trip. You can start to see which area fits your normal life, not just your vacation idea. For some buyers, that simplicity is a real advantage. Another reason buyers choose the Alabama Gulf Coast is that it gives them beach access without every option being a beach town. That is important. Not everyone who wants to move near the Gulf wants to live directly in Gulf Shores or Orange Beach. Some people want to be near the beach, but they also want a more normal residential lifestyle. That's where areas like Foley can come in. Foley gives you shopping and restaurants, neighborhoods, and everyday convenience while still keeping you within driving distance of the beach. Fairhope gives you Mobile Bay, downtown charm, restaurants, shops, and a very different lifestyle from the beach communities. Daphne and Spanish Fort give you more suburban Eastern Shore living with access to Mobile and I-10. Robertsdale, Loxley, and Summerdale can feel more inland and spread out. So one of the biggest strengths of Baldwin County is that buyers are not limited to one version of coastal living. You can choose beach lifestyle, bayfront charm, or you can choose suburban. For convenience, you can choose inland value and more space. And for a lot of relocation buyers, that variety is exactly what helps them find the right fit. Florida has a very strong brand. A lot of people think Florida first when they think about beaches, retirement, second homes, or Gulf Coast living. But strong name recognition can also mean more competition in some markets, and in certain areas, a more intense intense tourism feel. That does not apply to every part of Florida. Florida has many different communities and each one is different, but some buyers are not necessarily looking for the most famous beach market. They're looking for a place that gives them the Gulf Coast lifestyle without feeling like they are choosing the most obvious or most crowded option. For those buyers, Alabama can be worth a closer look. Gulf Shores and Orange Beach still have tourism, visitors, restaurants, condos, events, and beach activity. So this is not some hidden place with no activity. But compared with the scale of Florida as a whole, the Alabama Gulf Coast can feel more specific, more local, and easier to wrap your head around. And for the right buyer, that can be appealing. Another reason some buyers choose Alabama is the day-to-day lifestyle. A lot of people visit the coast and picture vacation life. But when you live somewhere full-time, you have to think about normal life. Where do you buy groceries? How far are you from appointments? Where do you go out to eat? How much driving are you doing? How busy does it feel during peak season? Can you find the type of home that actually works for you? That is why Baldwin County can be a strong option. If you want the beach, you can look at Gulf Shores or Orange Beach. If you want to be near the beach, but not directly in the busiest beach areas, you can look at Foley. If you want Mobile Bay and downtown charm, take a look at Fairhope. If you need access to Mobile, you can compare Daphne and Spanish Fort. So instead of choosing only based on the beach, buyers can choose based on their weekly routine. That is one of the most important decisions when relocating, because a place can look perfect for a vacation spot and still not be the right fit for everyday life. Another thing buyers like is that the Alabama Gulf Coast can be easier to compare. If someone asks me, should I look at Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Foley, Fairhope, Daphne, or Spanish Fort? That is a conversation we can break down clearly. We can talk about beach access, about boating, about Mobile Bay. We can talk about shopping and convenience, about commute routes. We can talk about cost differences. We can talk about whether they want a condo, a single family home, a second home, or a full-time residence. That does not mean the decision is always easy, but the map is easier to understand than comparing dozens of Florida coastal markets across a much larger state. For buyers who want a more focused search, that can be a big advantage. They can come here, visit multiple areas, drive the routes, see the differences, and make a more informed decision. This is one of the most important points. Some buyers start out thinking they need to be as close to the beach as possible. Then once they really think about their lifestyle, they realize they might not need that. They may want to go to the beach on weekends. They may want to live 20 or 30 minutes away and have more space. They may want to avoid the busiest tourism areas. They may want a more residential lifestyle. They may want Mobile Bay instead of the Gulf. They may want access to the coast without living in the middle of vacation activity. That is where Alabama can make a lot of sense, because you have several communities that let you build a coastal lifestyle in different ways. You can live directly near the beach, or you can live near the beach without being in the beach traffic every day. That flexibility is one of the reasons buyers choose Baldwin County. Now, I do not want this video to sound like Alabama is perfect and Florida is not. That would not be fair or accurate. The Alabama Gulf Coast has trade-offs too. If you want a larger selection of coastal cities, Florida may give you more options. If you want a bigger airport nearby, depending on where you're comparing, Florida may be more convenient. If you want a larger metro area, more nightlife, more luxury, or a very specific type of Florida lifestyle, Alabama may not be the best match. Alabama's Gulf Coast is smaller. That is part of the appeal for some people, but it can also be a limitation for others. You still need to think about insurance and flood zones and seasonal traffic, tourism, humidity, storms, cost of living. So the goal is not to say one place is better. The goal is to understand which place fits you. So why do some buyers choose the Alabama Gulf Coast over Florida? Usually comes down to lifestyle fit. They want a smaller Gulf Coast search. They want beach access without only looking at beach town. They want Baldwin County options like Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Foley, Fairhope, Daphne, Spanish Fort, and Robertsdale. They want something that may feel more manageable than comparing a long list of Florida markets. And they want to find the area that fits their actual daily life, not just the vacation version of coastal living. Florida may be the right fit for some buyers. Alabama may be the right fit for others. The key is to compare based on your budget, your lifestyle, your property type, and what you want your normal week to feel like. And if you're considering the Alabama Gulf Coast, I would be happy to help you compare the different communities here and figure out which one may fit you best. You can call, text, or email me anytime. All of my contact information is in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, make sure you subscribe subscribe to the channel because I share honest videos about what it's really like living along the Alabama Gulf Coast. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.